Hello, everybody. Today is April 21st. It is the Monday following Easter weekend. It is 8:30 Eastern Standard Time here in East Tennessee. So I thought I'd do my first video of the week, and thought we'd start with, since it was Easter weekend, there's something I came across. Saw lots of things on, which was good. A lot of people coming out for Easter in France. It was a big thing I posted on my X account, and Ethiopian Christians just all over the world, and it was just a wonderful day and weekend for that. So I thought that was pretty good, and that's of course followed by the news of the Pope's death over the night. So I guess it was a stroke related to then respiratory issues following that, and cardiac. I guess arrest after that. So basically, that's what happened here. I'm not going to get into the politics of the Pope. I will say this. He definitely was more on the liberal side, less into the orthodoxy of the Catholic Church, and seemed to back some of these globalist ideas. So it'll be very interesting to see where they go now. I'm hearing that they'll have a new Pope in 3 weeks, is what their goal is. So we'll keep an eye on that and see where that goes. But so this I came across, I just thought it was a nice thing with the Eastern Europeans with the decorative eggs that they do in Ukraine and other parts of Eastern Europe. And if you didn't know, that Easter this year fell on both the Orthodox Easter and the Western Easter, Catholics and Protestants alike. It was the same Easter on the calendar this year. So I thought that was a nice little thing to get there. So let's jump into today's Easter event at the White House. The traditional annual Easter egg roll and hunt or whatever. President Donald Trump coloring with the kids at the White House Easter egg. I'm really into this. So you had the people there, families, the Easter bunny bouncing around, whatever. So this is positive, family-oriented, good morality, based in our traditions and our values going on at the White House, representing the majority of the American people. Okay? And I want to contrast to what was going on at the White House during the Biden years. All right? There we go. Look at this, John. For your record, that is a male. Okay? That is a male, okay, who at an event, I believe this was actually last year, completely topless with implants because he's a male. An event, the person next to him doing the same thing as well, exposing themselves right there on the White House lawn. Classic. Now, if you look behind in the picture, you will notice they have the gay pride, but it's also the transgender triangle as well, or is in that flag. Now, even if regardless of what you think of the agenda, whatever, separate, the United States flag should still always be higher than any other flag. It's why when I go to my kid's gym, the Tennessee state flag is slightly below the U.S. flag, the American flag. And anytime you'll see that, where there's multiple flags, the American flag is still the highest. Not at the Biden White House. It is equal. Okay, but that's understandable because they don't believe in the Constitution. They don't believe in the Westphalian nation state. They don't believe in traditional values. They don't believe in traditional Western culture. They're destructive human beings. Just basic morality, as you can see here. So the President of the United States had this carousing around. What a quick turnaround of events. I mean, even if we elected like a Nikki Haley, neocon, whatever, even those kind of Republicans wouldn't allow this going on. So I just wanted to contrast on the wholesomeness of Easter versus the debauchery, demonic mentality of the globalist, neo-Marxist Biden administration. All right, so moving on. Here we go. This is pollster Contest Insights, which is relatively new to the game. And if you don't know, they were one of the closer ones in the election, picking Trump, nailing some states, and pretty good on the popular vote. Okay? And they're tweeting out Rasmussen, Mitchell's group. Okay? Rasmussen showed Trump ahead of Harris in 2024 when others did not. And they're right. Post-election reviews confirmed Harris never led, and Rasmussen ranked among the most accurate pollsters of the cycle. That is correct. Harris never led. Let me repeat that. Harris never led. And there's a lot of evidence for it, which I'm not going to go in there, but that is the reality. So here we go. They now have Trump at 52% approval, 46 disapproval. And it's up from their last two. Well, they have a daily tracker, but from week to week, it's been up from where they had it over the last few weeks. And I think this is a response to what the garbage with this, the immigration, this with Van Hollen going down, and how crazy these people are about this Maryland man, okay? People are like, what? He's an El Salvadoran citizen, among other things, and the coverage. They're only placating their base. It is not doing that. And then I've heard that like 90+% of Trump voters said they would still come out and vote for him. I mean, that is a high number after that. People remember, there's always a chunk of people that make a decision at the last minute anyway. So they're in there. And you got to get the same people actually voted. Some people intended to vote that way. Maybe they came out, maybe they didn't. Okay? But this is good. It's showing an uptrend in his approval rating. But the key point is, again, the pollsters like Quinnipiac, who's wrong, Economist YouGov, which does a panel, an online panel mostly, is wrong. Okay? And a lot of these pollsters use the same data sets. Then they come up with, each one takes the data set and does their own modeling and how they want to do it. Okay? But again, with approval rating, are these adults, are these registered voters, are these likely voters? When you modeled your model, did you get all your independents from, outside of blue cities instead of outside of smaller, redder cities? Like, where did you get this? Okay. It's like anything else. You have to go by the track record. If I have a doctor who screwed up this surgery, screwed up this surgery, screwed up this surgery, what happens? He gets sued. Malpractice insurances don't want to insure him, whatever. Why do we follow these pollsters who are wrong election after election after election again? So Contis is pointing out Rasmussen was right on the election again, and they're right on the approval rating because they are more trustworthy due to their track record. So that was something I want to share with you, and if that's the case, I think that's good news. Okay, because Trump in his first term never got an approval like really super high. Okay, barely, but I think I've seen 51, 52 a couple times in like 2019 when the economy was really good and stuff. But for the majority of his presidency, it was, and forget the honeymoon of the first 2 months of every president. But now we're getting into policies and everything going on. So, when you put that into consideration, this is better. He's performing better. And he's performing better than Obama was, basically. A little bit later in Obama's terms, because he still had a little bit of a longer honeymoon period. He had the financial crisis and everything. So, all right. Moving on. This was interesting. This was from Secretary Lynn McMahon of the Department of Education. She put this up. The most recent Nations report card shows that 40% of 8th graders cannot even read at the basic level. One of the worst results we've seen. Nearly 70% of 8th graders are not proficient in reading. What we are doing is simply not working. That's right. Okay? I would love to get rid of the Department of Education. Billions of dollars. It's founded under the Carter administration in 1978. Public education has gotten worse in the United States. We throw money at these urban schools, okay, and other areas. We pay high amount of money per pupil. States kick in insane amount of money as well. Local money goes in as well. And many places don't have accountability, okay? Like my state, Tennessee, has, like my kids are taking the TCAPs, okay? They are standardized testing. It's a way to measure both teachers and students, okay? Is there a mold for every student? Of course not. But that's life. You have to adjust. Oh, I'm not good at this. Well, I guess that's life. You got to figure out a way to make it work to be competitive in the workplace. But if you can't even get to the basic reading levels like this, I mean, what are we doing? system is not working. Okay, so you have all this money being funneled to the federal government, then redistributed to these poorer, mostly urban districts, and they're not getting the results done. But the teachers and everything, they have massive benefits, insane. Okay, when I used to live in New York, I used to always look at the budget. Never an investment in the child. Benefits went up, benefits went up. So the budget went up, the budget went up, the budget went up, and the taxes went up, the taxes went up, the taxes went up. Okay, but you don't change how you're educating child. The system is the problem. Okay, and there are a lot of solutions out there, whatever, but there is no net benefit to this. At the very least, return the money in a block grant back to the states. So let them allocate how they want to do it. Okay, then you're not at least paying the bureaucratic costs. You don't have strings attached. Each state knows how they want to handle their public education. So, moving on from that, which is clearly the big story of the day. I thought this was a great truth by Trump. How can Biden let millions of criminals into our country, totally unchecked and unvetted, with no legal authority to do so? Yet I, in order to make up for this assault to our nation, am expected to go through a lengthy legal process, separately, for each and every criminal alien. As usual, two different standards, only leading to the complete and total destruction of the USA. Make America great again. Well, it's pretty simple. Okay, it's really simple. You live by the EO, the executive order. You should be able to die by the executive order. In this particular case, we have immigration law. It hasn't been changed in years by Congress, set in, and what the Biden administration did is took existing programs, expanding it, executive orders saying, granting parolees, flying in people, paying them to come in, hundreds of thousands of flights. Okay, that's not a refugee. Refugees go to the next country, okay? When you fly them in, that's not. And that's just one example. But if you cannot reverse right? This is not like Congress passed it and then Biden signed these immigration policies. Biden just did it. If the incoming president can't reverse it, then why even have elections? Why even bother? Just, you know what? The hell with it. Just one party rule, that's it. Because if you can't undo it the way it was done outside of the constitutional system, well, then there's no point. Then there's really no point of elections. What was the point of even electing Trump then, if he can't do this, which the American people are behind? Okay? How can the job of the court, the Supreme Court, is to be the final interpretation of the U.S. Constitution? You're discussing programs that have nothing to do with the Constitution. They weren't even created by acts of Congress. Okay? They were just done by executive fiat. And then the next guy should be able to get rid of executive fiat and do it. This is really the one example where I've just ignore it. I don't care anymore. Okay? You cannot have a president. This country will never survive. The rule of law is meaningless. Everything is meaningless. If you have a president who can just create all these things out of thin air, do all these things outside of the existing statutes, and then say the incoming president can't reverse it, then don't even bother. Why even have two parties? Why even have elections? Just go home. Democratic Party, you're in charge. Half the Republicans would love that. They join, they get a little member party card, they pick their people to run it, and that's it. Just have it. Because if you can't reverse it outside of the way it was implemented, okay, if they have an issue with how Trump is reversing these EOs and these programs, then they should have did something when they were implemented. Because if you're implementing it the same way, you should be able to get rid of it the same way. It's pretty simple. If you cannot do that via elections, then clearly you don't even care about democracy, which they don't. They care about the end goal of their Machiavellian policies, and they'll do anything to get there. All right? So that's my position on this. Just keep going. Just keep going. Now, I'm hoping that the SCOTUS is just doing that to come up with, while they work on it, and then rule in his favor. If they don't, we have a serious problem in this country. Serious problem. And not just the issue of immigration itself and what to do with these 20 million nut jobs, but um, the executive authority that one president can do it and then can't be undone. Because then what Biden did was dictatorial and becomes law. Okay, but one other president can't, then you have a problem. Then you have a serious problem in this nation. So we'll see what happens on that. So going down, I got my X up. I just put these up right before I started the video. So going back to the Department of Education again. Breaking, U.S. Department of Education will now begin collecting student loan payments not collected from those who defaulted since 2020. McMahon, American taxpayers will no longer be forced to serve as collateral for irresponsible student loan policies. That's good. May 5th. So I agree with this. Okay. First of all, don't take out a loan if you can't repay it. I feel like COVID, because it was 2020, had something to do with this. Okay. It's been 4 years now. The idea is you take out the loan to get the degree, to get the job, to pay you the income, to pay back the loan, and make more money than you did had you not gone and taken the loan and go to that school in the first place. Okay? Pay it back. Because now we are supplementing. And we're not, it's not even the taxpayers supplementing it. It's because we're running $2 trillion deficits. It's just being printed. Okay? So it's inflationary to everybody else. Okay, why does one person have to pay it back and not? Then we have 14th Amendment, equal protection clause. Why are we subsidizing people to not pay back their loans? Okay, well, if you don't pay back your loan to a private lender for something else, you get sent to collections. Ridiculous. So this is a good program, and I'm liking that. Oh, by the way, this is that little video in Ethiopia with the Christians coming out that I mentioned. Yeah, I forgot I posted that. So, all right. So that's my little thoughts on Trump's truth on the immigration issue. So let's move on to the international front. Now, we got this war footing going on with Iran. We keep hearing they can't have a nuclear weapon. They can't have a nuclear weapon, which they were always 6 months from for 25 years. Just let that sink in. Okay? All right. We're told they don't have the technology and this and that. All right? This is Bloomberg. Not a globalist institution. It is. Okay? Iran's space program is growing stronger despite U.S. sanctions. What? Listen, if you have a space program, you're building ballistic missiles. And I've seen videos of the underground silos of these missiles. See, that missile strike in response for the inauguration that Israel did, and then also the attack in Damascus on the Iranian embassy that Iran launched, where us and Israel took out all these stuff. See, what they did is they sent in all these drones, they sent in crappy missiles, and then the few newer missiles hit their target, 3 or 4 accurate target. They got a lot of those, just for the record. You don't have a space program that can do that without, that means you have the ballistic missile capability. And Iran was sending the message during that strike, yeah, we distracted you with this, but our 3 to 4 good missiles got through. So, slow down Israel, was their message. Okay, so I just thought this was interesting. When you take a position on foreign policy, Iran, they can't do this, they're weak, we can bomb them and destroy them and all this stuff, whatever. But then a similar publication comes out and says they have a space program. Okay, why does Russia have a great space program? And China, they have great missile technology. See how that goes together? So I just thought that's something to think about before we, because going. This Iran thing's making me nervous that Trump's because he's gonna own that war, and it's gonna be bad. It does not end well. So I hope we can, and Trump is right, we're gonna negotiate. And we good? Should. So, and what's in the best interest of the United States and the region, not just one particular country desired outcome. So, thought I'd share that with you. And moving on. All right. So over the weekend, there was a lot of meetings. Right? J.D. Vance went to see the Pope. Lavrov hosted, I I think foreign minister from Iran, but this one stuck out to me. Saudi Arabia's defense minister, Khalid bin Salman, warmly welcomed in Tehran by chief of Iranian armed forces, Bagheri. Okay, so remember this. Iran and Saudi Arabia hated each other. Sunni, Shiite, Saudi Arabia in bed with the United States, Iran obviously not, okay? But they're both in BRICS now. They're both working together now. They're both working with Russia as well, all right? Russia was just in Qatar over the weekend. The Qatari president, or emir, I should say, was in Putin. They signed a $2 billion deal on business investments and so forth. Now, remember, Qatar is the home of I think it's the Fifth Fleet and U.S. CENTCOM. Here they are meeting with Russia, signing a deal. Okay, clearly there is some sort of coalescing within that BRICS umbrella of these institutions going forward. So the trend of geopolitics is really not changing. There is a huge desired shift led by Russia, China, even India, particularly on an economic foot, away from Western hegemony. Okay? That's why it's imperative. It is not imperative that Trump sets us on a course to prevent that. It's more imperative that Trump sets us on a course to prepare for multipolarity, because it's going to happen. It is absolutely going to happen. It's just a question of when. Okay? A lot of countries aren't eager to leave the dollar as a prime reserve currency, but they're transacting business in other countries, right? It's difficult. What am I going to do with I buy stuff from India? What am I going to do with all these rupees? I don't need now that, So it's there's only so much you can do in your own currency. But as long as we're sanctioning everybody, especially BRICS member nations, for political purposes, there's always going to be a look to get away from that. Okay? So these countries are putting aside their historical differences to come together, which is their desired end of Western, U.S.-led global hegemony. All right? And the global South is all on board with doing this. And they were seeing that. That's why it's important with these tariffs, not just from what's good for job opportunities, prices, domestically producing and maximizing our energy, our manufacturing output, which helps us, like I said, economically trade and gives us leverage in the trading global world market, but it makes us more independent, okay? It makes us more. And then like I always say, it's very simple. You max out production, you trade shit you have too much of for the shit you don't have enough of. That's a healthy global economy. Not for the purposes of let's pick up all these factories, move them to China, and let's pick a war with China. And then we wonder why they cut us off from this and cut us off from that. And now we can't even get the good we need because once we used to produce it, now we don't. Well, that's stupid. Okay, why would you ship over the jobs and then get into a conflict with them? Because you're now becoming dependent with them. Now, China's dependent on us because we buy so much of that crap. So we are intertwined. Okay, so, but there is a moving away from that eventually. It's just a question of when. And, we'll see. We'll see how that goes, whatever. But I like the idea. That's why, with the tariffs, get some of these factories back because we're preparing for that possibility. 5 years, 15, 20, who knows? But this gradual trend, especially as I showed in my last video, real GDP of the United States is going down. And now that we imported all these people, per capita it's even less. Okay, and now we can't, as I just said, we're not allowed to deport anybody, so anybody can just come in because they can't be left if they have due process. You're not a citizen, you're not being committed a crime. You're being removed by the executive branch, Article 2 power. You're allowed to do that. Anyway. All right. The big elephant in the room on foreign policy. Respond to Trump plan to end Ukraine conflict. Wall Street Journal. U.S. proposal includes recognition of Russia's annexation of Crimea and blocking Ukraine from joining NATO. Now, thoughts. First, NATO, Crimea. it's Russia. You're not even giving anything up. And if you have one toe in reality, Ukraine, Crimea is never going back. The people are Russian. It's done. Okay. So it's about the four oblasts, right? Kherson, Zaporozhye, Donetsk, Lugansk. Now you're talking Sumy. Now you're talking Dnipropetrovsk. Okay. All right. I still think they're going to, without a peace deal, and a peace deal, not a ceasefire, a peace deal. By the way, from what I read from both Ukrainian and Russian sides, for the most part, the Easter peace ceasefire did hold up for the most part. Like there wasn't any. It was. From what I understand, there were a few little pockets, but from what I understand, fighting significantly dropped. So that was good. Ukraine can't be in NATO. Okay, that's it. Now there's one thing in the plan, and this is the Trump plan, basically the White House's plan, United States plan, is that the Zaporozhye nuclear power plant will become some sort of either international, maybe the Americans will take it over. It's not going to happen. Russians already said no. One, it's the largest nuclear power plant in Europe, I believe. Two, Russia controls it. Okay. And they're not going to allow American in. It's like the peacekeepers. They're just not going to allow a French and the whole point of them not wanting Ukraine in NATO. It's not NATO itself. It's having a giant superpower that runs NATO, us, the United States, having 3,000 miles away from their country, having missiles 500 miles from Moscow, among other things. Okay? In this conflict, France and Britain have sent missiles galore and ammunitions and tanks and everything, Challengers and whatever, AMX-30s, okay, to Ukraine. They're not going to allow, and they're members of NATO. They're not going to agree any way for them in Ukraine because it defeated the purpose of what they did at the beginning of the special military operation. Okay, so you have to live in whatever. So unless there's any reality, and Ukraine is rejecting it, because from what I understand, because Rubio met over the weekend, right? He met with European Union leaders. Okay, Witkoff was there, thank God. And what did Rubio say afterwards? He says, well, we're going to walk away, basically. We have no choice if this doesn't get done. That's right. Okay? It's clear. They have red lines. Now, Ukrainians say that we have red lines, but how can they enforce it? Europe cannot replace our support, period. It would take them years to ramp up to the level of production they need to replace our support. U.S. and Europe combined today cannot match the production of the Russian Federation. Okay? Ukraine is drafting 18-year-olds. They don't have red lines to enforce. Okay? But the European globalist leaders are pushing Zelensky. Without a doubt, that's what's going on. So Trump's going to be like, the hell with it. All right? All right? So if you want to save land east of the Dnieper River, Ukraine, this is your chance. No NATO. Recognize the oblasts. Withdraw out of those four oblasts. Recognize Crimea. And then figure something, all the little minor details out. What to do with some Russians living on the Ukrainian side, Ukrainians living on the Russian side. What to do with the border that Russia would probably want a buffer from those attacks on Belgorod, whatever, near Sumy region, something like to that extent. So, but yeah, you got to be realistic here. And Trump is. And Witkoff's learning and everything. I mean, he spent 5 hours with Putin the last meeting he had. So, but I believe there's like a time frame on this. I forgot what the date was, but it's not. It's like a week or two to make a decision on this. And I think that's what's going to happen. I was like, I tried everything, And we know the Russians, the ceasefire's out the window. They're like, no, they'll just rearm, get a chance to sneak in NATO troops in the western Ukraine or something to that effect. But you want to end the war, it's very simple. Pull the plug. Then Ukraine does not have the ability. And the soldiers will be like, well, where are we getting our weapons from? Where are we getting this from? We can't sustain this war without that support. And Europe cannot fill that void even close. But you pull it all. And not just to the weapons. We're paying for civilian functions of their government as well in monthly payments. Pull that. Just pull it off. Zelensky will come to the table. And it'll be beneficial for them. All right? Yeah, and I've seen some tweets, people putting out old tweets of that people called out on how they were talking about Ukraine in 2020 among Ukrainian citizens and what they're saying now. And believe me, they don't have the war fever like they once did. So basically, that was my brief for today, Monday, April 21st. So I'll be keeping an eye out for what happens on this Ukraine deal. Any move, like I said, there was no major military stuff over the weekend because of that Easter ceasefire. And then we'll keep an eye out what SCOTUS does, finally, on this immigration issue. We'll keep an eye out on the Romanian elections, less than 2 weeks, if you don't know. The conservative, he's up. He's polling like 3-4 heads. His name's Simeon. He's polling ahead. Not where Georgescu was, but he's polling ahead. So the big battle is going to be 2 and 3 for the runoff against Simeon. And then a week from today, we have the Canadian elections. So I was looking at a lot of polls post-debate. I saw one with the Conservatives up. The consensus seems to be that, a lot of polls have the Liberals up. But when you look down closer and you even look at some other polls, it shows that the Conservatives are actually up in the polling. But because the way these ridings, or seats, they're called ridings though, are concentrated, the conservative Poilievre needs to win at least 2 to 3 points more in the popular vote to translate into the seats he needs to become the next prime minister. So Polymarket has it 75 chance Liberals win, 25% chance, and that's not popular vote, that's seats, and Carney becoming the prime minister, and 25% for Poilievre and the Conservatives winning that. Also, I've noticed is that in one chart, I guess I say, what pollster, an aggregator of pollsters in Canada put out basically it was a probability for each, and there were 4 of them, was Liberal win with a minority government, Liberal win with a majority government, Conservative win with a minority government, Conservative win with a majority government. And out of those, the biggest one I saw was Liberal win with a minority government. And I agree with that. I think that's what's going to happen. Poilievre is not. Now, I'm hearing that this could be, some of these polls are a little ridiculous because they have these seats that would never go that way, are going that way. And then you also have a case where people say there's going to be, that hidden vote, whatever. But Canada has been more historically accurate on their polling than the United States has been. Just like European pollsters are more accurate. So I think that's what's going to happen. Carney will win. He will lose the popular vote. He will win more seats than the Conservatives, and he will be, I can't say reelected, he was just replaced by Trudeau when Trudeau resigned. So I will think that. And hopefully I'm proven wrong. I'm not a big fan of Poilievre, but he's better than Carney and the Liberals. So maybe if he does win, Poilievre, he can have some sort of relationship with Trump. That'll be beneficial. But anyway, so I'll be following that over the next week. So you can follow me on my X at PatriotPlanner1, on my Getter at PatriotPlanner. And if you like the video, please follow, like, and share. All right, have a good weekend till my next video.